Critical Thinking Rule 6. Use consistent terms. Rule 6 is about using the same terms to refer to the same ideas. There's actually two different types of inconsistency that it's good to avoid in arguments. One is using different words for the same meaning. This is a synonymous use of words or phrases. An example is dog versus members of the species Canis familiaris. And this type of inconsistency does not create a logical break in your argument. So it's not a problem in the argument's logical validity or logical strength. It just makes the argument less clear. If you use the same words or phrases to refer to the same idea, it's going to make it easier to see the logical connections between your premises and between the premises and the conclusion. And this is good for communicating the argument effectively. A second type of inconsistency, called equivocation, is using the same word or phrases with different meanings. This one does create a logical gap in your argument. So in that sense, it's more serious because it can make it seem as if there's a logical connection between the premises or between the premises and the conclusion, even though there isn't really one. When we see the same words or phrases in these different sentences, we could think they're logically connected when they're not. An example of a word that can be used equivocally or with two different meanings is bachelor. Bachelor can mean an unmarried male, or it can mean an undergraduate degree. And so you want to use the word in one sense only if you were making an argument about bachelors. Let's look at an example. Socrates is human. All members of the species Homo sapiens are immortal. Therefore, the most famous ancient Greek philosopher will not live forever. Okay, so are there any uses of words or phrases that are inconsistent? The first is Socrates. In the conclusion, after the word therefore, Socrates is referred to as the most famous ancient Greek philosopher. It's clear from context this is supposed to refer to Socrates. But for the sake of clarity, we want to use the same word in both cases. This is the first type of inconsistency mentioned, where different words or phrases are used to express the same meaning. So it just decreases the clarity of the argument. Let's look for any other cases of inconsistent use of terms. Human and members of the species Homo sapiens. They mean the same thing, so you should use the same word to refer to both. And finally, mortal versus will not live forever. Mortal means you're going to die, which is the same meaning as will not live forever. So the three cases of inconsistency in this argument are all of the first kind, where you're using different words or phrases for the same meaning. You want to use the same words for the same meaning just to increase the clarity of the argument. Let's look at another sample problem. Being transgender is uncommon, so it is not normal. If something is not normal, it is abnormal. So being transgender is abnormal. Which word or phrase is used inconsistently in this argument? Look at the two uses of the phrase not normal. They may seem the same, but if you look at the meaning of each of those two sentences, in order to make them make sense, we have to interpret not normal in different ways. So let's look at the first sentence. Being transgender is uncommon, so it is not normal. In this case, not normal is being used in the sense of statistically unlikely. But look at the second sentence. If something is not normal, it is abnormal. Unlike the word uncommon, abnormal usually has a negative connotation. It implies deviance or that something is wrong. So for example, like if a medical test is abnormal, that's usually a bad sign. But this is different from the notion of just statistically uncommon. Something could be statistically uncommon, like having really great endurance when running or something like that, but not be abnormal in the sense of problematic. So in this argument, the phrase not normal is being used in two completely different ways. This is the second type of inconsistency, which creates a logical gap in the argument, so it makes it invalid. Next up, we have a new chapter, Arguments by Example. This is about how to prove claims about groups or types of things using many different examples.